Hey, how you doing? Let's do it to it. I'll go on through it. I get a drink, then we'll get started. This is Cambridge Springs, 1904. This was to be my last tournament game with Pillsbury. This is a King's Indian. Marshall's white, Pillsbury's black. So E4, D6, an unusual move which is bound to lead to a cramped game. D4, Knight F6, Knight F6. Here on our next move, black should play E5 right now, which despite its unattractive appearance would at least hold the center for black a little bit, give him some central control. This does nothing to do that. Knight to C3. Oops, the wrong one, sorry, not that, it's my bad. It's actually this here. He's going for more of a King's Indian setup. So he goes F4, Bishop G7, and then E5. Boom. Pawn takes. Bishop pawn takes, because we don't want to go towards an endgame. That wouldn't favor us. That would actually help black. If we took this way, black would be more than happy to exchange off and then plop a knight down there. And then he can actually get his knight involved, and more than happy about it in equal position. But here, it keeps some of the ideas. This knight still has to move. Where does it want to go to? It can't. If it goes here, it'd have to come back there. So if it goes here, here, and then there, and potentially you can wreak havoc on H5. So knight to D. This also allows for trades. Knight to G. If knight takes here, pawn would take, which would strengthen the D pawn, also opening up the bishop for some sort of later attack along the A3 to F8 diagonal. So he played knight C6, bishop to C4. He played E6, which is actually a mistake. A better line would create a hole on B3 when you do that. So potentially bishop to E6, they were saying is best, or knight to B6 is also good, because then you're attacking the bishop, which would make the bishop have to actually retreat to B3. So it would at least hold some types of threats in the position. But E6, it does nothing. Nothing. Bishop to G5 in that line is an exclam move. It attacks the queen. Also, so then when knight takes, pawn takes knight, and then knight to e7 to block. And then white castles. So boom, there we go. Pawn to h6. The bishop actually goes into f6 here, which is an exclam move. It's kind of, you wouldn't think, you'd think, wait, what are we doing? Doesn't this allow that? And then after it takes, pawn takes, can he go knight here? Yeah, he can. And then queen to e2. And if the queen takes here, we now have an idea based around the knight move coming in and potentially poking a little there, or potentially poking here. This is what they said about bishop takes. Here, back here, I gotta read it to you. Whether black swaps or lets white do so, the important thing is that the king bishop disappears and weakens the black's king bishop e3, because even more marked as will be seen from the sequence. White is a full pawn, is fully prepared to give up a pawn. White is fully prepared to give up a pawn for activity, because if you notice, the majority of white's pawns are perfectly placed. I mean, not pawns, but pieces are perfectly placed. So it's like, why would he, you're thinking, why would he want to give up a thing? Yeah. Queen takes pawn on f6. It would have been wiser to have played rook to h5 and tried to cause a little bit of chaos, but then you have to worry about him holding on to this pawn, so he just decided to grab it and say, prove it. And we're like, Alrighty. Let's see here. Knight to e5, queen e2, boom. Castles. If he played bishop to d7, knight takes the bishop pawn, knight takes, bishop takes, pawn, rook guards, and then rook takes knight, rook takes, and rook comes over, and this wins. Pillsbury just got out of there like a bad habit and just left. Rook b2. Placing in an order to double rooks on the king on the F file, which will have decisive effect and incredibly threaten bishop takes pawn. Note that this is not a threat with a king rook on b1, but it's a threat when you get this. That becomes a threat at this point. King to knight 2. Queen rook slides over. And then bishop to e2. If he had played c6, c4, knight takes, knight takes, wait a second, what am I missing here? Even the desperate attempt of that. Okay. Oh. I had the wrong one. So knight takes there, takes, pawn takes, check. And it's totally ownage after that. All the king's open to the whole entire world. So rook b6. Rook f6. It's the only move. Rook to there, knight there. Knight takes, queen takes, rook takes, king takes, and then queen to e5. It's checkmate. If queen takes, rook takes, king takes, knight takes, bishop check, and then when he comes there, knight takes, rook, and it's game, set, and match at that point too. So that was a pretty stellar game by Marshall. You gotta love that. Let's work on some puzzles now. Let's do it to it. Alright. Okay, board, editor. Let's get on to it. Okay. Clear the board. White to mate 2. If you like what you see, you can always click follow and join us. I'm on every night. Let's see how much. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Now you check here. That's covered, that's covered, that's covered, so he's got to take. And then the queen comes sliding in as mate. Oops, sorry about that. Wrong positioning. There we go. Give you 30 seconds for a mate 2. Alright, let's do it to it. A full minute. Alright, let's see what do we got here. Oh boy. This here, it takes, and then you got checkmate. There you go. Okay. Onward and upward to the next one. Good job on finding that though. You're doing great. Pardon me, a little hiccup there. Night. Let's see here. 2, 2, 2, 4, 2, 3. Oops, and the rook's in the wrong spot. So 2, 2, 2, 4, 2, 3. That's 5. Then 2. Perfect. Let's see, what time is it? I'll give you 40 seconds to see if you could solve mate 2. Alrighty, let's do it too. Let's see what we got. And rook check, knight takes, then queen to e8 is mate. It's forced mate 2. Congrats on finding that. Great job, team. Four, 1, 3, 1, 4, 3, 2. What's your 4? Okay. Let's see. I'll give you 15 seconds. Actually, I'll give you more than that. I'll give you about 30. I'll wait till it hits 7:41 here. Then I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll tell you when the 30 seconds start. Now, mate 2 for white. Okay, let's see what do we got here. So it has to be forcing, so let's see what could be forcing here. Excuse me. This is a difficult one. Do I have this set up right? Perfect, perfect, perfect. Gotta make sure there's actually a mate. Yeah, there is. Kaboom. There's the mate. So what is it? Rook d8. King takes, and then there's your mate. Other moves don't work. Had to make sure that I was doing it right, so I checked it. Never be afraid if you have to just see the first move so that you're not guessing. It's a bad habit to get into guessing. So if you need just a little hint, do it, but don't rely on it. Just look at the first move and then try to work it out from there. It's never wrong to do that as long as you're training. So let's keep that in your forefront of that it's all about learning. All about learning. Okay, 1, 3, 4, and 1. Okay. Let's see, what do we got here? See if we can solve this. Okay. Rook to f5 takes, and then queen g2 is mate. Or not g2, but g7. So that was that. That goes another one down. Yes, sir, another one down. Okay, mate 2 for white. Let's see what we got here. Bishop check, king takes, and then b8 is mate. From b8. Onward and upward. And stop it if you watch this on YouTube. Stop it before and try to work it out if you can. Just do your best. Don't start the recording until you have solved it, because it'll help you get better. And if you need a hint, you can always start the recording and then go over it. I mean, you could tell that black's in a world of hurt. Look at where his queen's at. It's totally offside. So 3, 3, and then there. Yeah, black's in a world of hurt right now. Rook check. Pawn takes. Checkmate. There's no way to any other moves because that's covered, that's covered. There's nothing, so he had to take, and there's your mate. This one's a walk in the park. There you go. Okay. First of all, check. King takes. Then you got mate on d6. Three more. We're on to our end game then. That'll be fun. Just gotta wait and it'll come back on. Just gotta be patient. Get a sip while I'm waiting. There we go. It's trying to reconnect. Give it a second to reconnect. I'll be right back. Okie dokie. Let's do it to it. Perfect. Okay, we're good to go. Okay. Rook checks when if pawn can't. Well, I guess pawn can't take, so king can take, and there's your mate. Pardon me. Excuse me. see, 1, 3, 3, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1. Okay. Rook check. Knight takes. Then you have mate. If king takes, then you have mate. So you have 2 mates, and that's great. One more, and we get into our end game. Hip hip hooray! It's a wonderful day. Do, 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 do. I'm happy. So happy. Yes, we are. Do, 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 do. Let's see, we have 2 rooks. Yep, one there and one there. Then we got a knight and a bishop. A knight and a bishop. Okay, there. That's a 2, 4, 2, 1, 4, 3, and 3. Perfect. I gotta erase this. Put a star right here. Boop, boop, boop. Put that. There we go. Rook check. Knight. And then rook mate. There we go. Now into the end game we come. This is what Jeremy Summon said. Most young players don't today aren't familiar with Solo Flora. That's a shame, since he was a powerful positional player and was also blessed with the fantastic technique. In our next game, Flora used both his pieces, his knight, his king, and rook, to maximum. His rook seemed to dance rings around its black counterpart, while his king almost single-handedly ruled the entire board. Two, two, 2, 1, 3, 2, and 2. This is a game between it's white to move. At first glance, it might convince some players that black is doing well. He has a rook on the 7th, a pass to a-pawn. However, black is actually in serious trouble. How can this be? How can a white advantage be logically explained? The answer is simple. White's pawn structure is superior. His king will prove to be far more active than black's, which is far away from the king's side to defend its pawns there. So one sec, I'll be right back. I'm going to give you your white, my friends. White to move. White to move. It's an exclam. That's an exclam. So white to move, it's an exclam. So you find the move and give it your best shot. I'll be right back. Okay. Congratulations on finding a5. Rook a5. Congrats on finding that. That's an exclam move. Great job. Great job. A very nice rook maneuver that threatens the D, against the D pawn, D5 pawn. Forces black to reply B5, rook A2, exclam again. Now black's rook is denied the 7th rank and F2 is no longer under attack. This frees the white king for a triumphant march into the king side. So G3. It's possible, Jeremy Silman says, that to push A5, King F4, King A6, King E5, Rook B1, King takes D5, King B5, King D6, King E7, King B4, D5, Rook D1, D6, etc. If he comes down here, what you can actually potentially do, I think it is take here, king takes, push. If he takes here, then takes. And then there's no way to stop. He can gobble all these pawns up, but you're going to get a queen and win. So that's not going to help either way. So F5, F4, F6, trying to shut white out. He goes, nope, you can't deny the inevitable. G4, H takes G, and king takes G. White wins material if he plays rather than if he goes A5, G takes H, takes, and then king F5, and it's all over but the crying. So we get a sip and we'll get started again. So Rook B1. It seems that white threatens H4, H5 is prevented. However, if black ignores the threat and instead plays A5, simply shuffling his passed pawn down the board, it turns out that the threat wasn't H4, H5 at all, but rather F5, F4, F5. Thus, after what he was talking about, if we play A5 here, of course, A5 is the move, and it's an exclam again. But if rather than what he's talking about is if A5 was played, then F4 is at, oops, sorry, not that. That was my my thing there, sorry. F4, had the wrong pawn. Black's busted because if he tries Rook B3, then F5 just is crushing. It's an exclam move because what's going to happen is after G takes and then king takes, sorry, not king takes, king F4, so we want to hold on to this, and this pawn's going to go up the board and it wins. So black, he tries there, and that's a wonderful rook maneuver again. Rook B, and then now Rook A1 to cover A1, the whole A1 file or rank. White's first rank is now more important than the second. the way white its rook zipped to a5, then back to whatever rank is critical at the moment, is nothing less than striking, which means beautiful. Rook b2, king f3, threatening to win black's g-pawn with rook to g1. Kaboom. Rook b6, rook g1, g5, or f5, not g5. Black defends g6, but now e5 and g5 squares have been opened up to white's king. So the king says, "Thank you very much," and he comes crushing right on in. So e6, trying to stop that. Rook b1 check. King a7. So if instead of king moving, but rook b6, rook a1, and now we keep in contact, and king b2, rook b2, f3, rook b3, and then a5 again. For real, I can't believe it. And this is again an exclam move. It's like, wow. b5 to stop the pawn from being lost. Now rook a3. Amazing. This same maneuver has been used to control the second, the first, and now the third rank. It's incredible. Rook b2, king e5, rook h2, king takes d5. Finally the d5 pawn falls. Takes, e4, takes, and white's two connected pass pawns will win the day, because this won't be able to, he'll be able to stop both these pawns, and these pawns will just go whoop all the way up the board. King a7, h5, because if he takes here, that falls, and so he's not going to do that. Rook e4 check, king g5, rook g4 check. I think black could have put up more resistance with g takes f5, exclam. This would have put up a little bit more resistance, Jeremy Silman said. King takes f, h4, exclam for black. So these are two exclam moves for black with a rather odd position, but it still is playable, and it'd be hard for white to win this. So it's not just giving up like that. That's just like a give up move. No, don't give up. The variation connected with g5 are extremely complex outside the scope of this discussion. However, I suspected that white's best chance can be found on f6. So king f6. He's saying that if oh, okay, he's continuing this line here, the h3 line. So after king g5, h3, rook h1, king rook h4, he said that it'd be too complex if we did the G line, so he went f6, h3, here, there, king e6, rook h5, f4, king b6, f5, king c7, or c7, yeah, f6, king d8, a4, exclam. So what he's doing is he's trying to break down and make two passers that are almost unbeatable, that white wouldn't be able to stop. He takes, and black's basically, as they say in Battleship, his battleship has been sunk. Sorry to say, but that's just how it is. So now we have to go back to where's the king f6 there. If he tries a5, rook b5, king a6, rook takes, a4, rook c5, king b6, rook c8, king b5, rook b8 check, king c4, rook a8, or a8, yeah, king b5, if he tries king b3, then d5 wins for white. So he can't allow, he has to keep an eye on d5. King f5, rook e7, h8, oops, what in the world? Did I make a couple mistakes here? I think I did. Sorry about that. b8. Ah, this is the problem. b8 check. King c4. King b5. Remember, we want to get behind, not in front. King f5. Rook e7. h8. f7 check. King e6. It takes f1, f2. It takes make sure I have this. So we're on 20. Not B3. B5. King F5. There we go. Rook H8. Now we're on track. F2. E. Rook takes. H5 check. King C4. And by the way, that's a sclam. I had to make sure I had this right. Rook takes. After he moves, of course. A3. D5 check. B3. D. A. Der. Queen. E6 queen. And king E5. When white is clearly better. They're saying that if at this point here, instead of after D, if he tries rook F6 check, king takes, queen check, rook D4, queen A6, king E7, queen B7, or B7, yeah, A4, king C3, rook D5, or if queen C7, rook D6, king C4, E5, B7, and then king E6. And black must resign because there's no way to prevent this from queening. Amazing stuff, Jeremy Silman said. Amazing stuff. So F6, G takes, king takes F. White's plan is clear. He wants to create two connected pass pawns in the center. Rook G2, king E5, rook G5, king E6. And if you're thinking, why not just grab this, right? Just grab it, right? If you did that, then that would allow white to get his plan, the two connected pass pawns, and basically dominate the game. I'm wondering, did I put in the wrong nope. Just wanted to make sure I was doing it all right. Yep. Sweet. So he has to go E6, H4, rook to H1, king H5, and then F4. And white doesn't doesn't manage to get his two connected passed pawns, but it turns out that this single passer will do more than both the rook and running pawn. Why is one pawn better than two? Because it's being escorted by the white king, while black's monarch is still on the queen's side, vacationing, as Jeremy Silman likes to say. King b6. F, and if he tries to go a5, f, a, f, wins easy for white. So this is his best attempt trying to stop it. King c7, f6, king d8, and then rook f1. Exclam. Because you're thinking, wait, doesn't that allow a runner? But remember, this pawn is being guarded now by a rook, so we potentially could actually make another pass pawn if we wanted to. Rook h6 to pin. King e8 is a bad move. Why did I... Oh, king d8. King e8, sorry, is a bad move. That's right. Because of... it runs into rook b1 with a mating threat, and then king king d8, rook b8 check, king c, and then f7, and there's nothing really he can do. h6. King to f7 is an exclam move. And the whole idea, it threatens to play g7 and followed by f7, f8, a beautiful played endgame. Okay. We're doing one more, and then the chapter's done, or the section's done. So that'll be good. Excuse me. I also need a drink of water. Much better. I'm finishing the section with a famous king and pawn endgame. So we're going to finish this section with a famous king and pawn endgame. So let's clear the board. Clear the board, my friends. Clear the board. Pardon me. Black to move. This is actually an endgame from I'm finishing this actually with the famous king and pawn endgame by Rubinstein, who is widely thought to be one of the greatest endgame players of all time. The reason for its inclusion is obvious. One rarely gets to see such a dominant king. This is a game between this player is white versus Rubinstein. It's St. Petersburg, 1909. White has just played rook c1, which is a horrible mistake since it allows black to trade into a winning king and pawn endgame. So rook takes, king takes. Why is this endgame winning for black? Aside from its superior pawn structure, the answer is simple. The black king will dominate whites. In general, you don't want to rush into a king and pawn endgame. If your opponent's king can take up a far superior position to your own. Black just plays king to f6. Many blindly rush their king to the center, which I must admit, it's usually the right thing to do. However, in this case, black's superiority is on the king side. So he makes a dash to into the embattled area, where it will target the pawns on h and these three pawns, h2, f2, and f3, to basically win the pawns. That's what this is all about. These are the weak points. So I'm going to just put them there so that when you look at them, these circles, you'll know what black's idea is about. King d2, king g5, and king e3, or e2. White tries to shore up his weaknesses on the king side, but the vast superiority of black's monarch will eventually drag him down. However, trying to create a passed pawn that can race up the board also ends in a major failure. So if he tried instead to have gone d3, h4, d4, h3, c5, not that, that's bad, c5, takes, d6, g2, c7, h5. Black can't gain tempo. Let me see here. King takes b, h4, king takes a, h3, b5, there, a1 equals queen, b, and then queen to a2, a1, b8 equals queen. He takes check, king b2, check on b4 or b3, it doesn't matter. He said b4, so we'll just go with Jeremy Silman. King c7, and then we just grab, he takes, king takes f3, and it's time for white to resign. So king e2 was his best attempt. h4, king f1, king h3, and then king g1. Just in time. However, the difference in the king's placements is apparent. So e5, a good move that stops the f3 pawn from moving to a safe square on f4. Thus, the normal b5 doesn't work either. b5 is flexible, would be met by, if we played b5, sorry, he could actually play f4 and cause a little bit of chaos. So king h1. Other tries could potentially be, instead of that, e4 could be a try. Not very challenging because g5, king h1, h4, Oops, what did I? H1, H5, King G1, G4 or H4, King H1, G, King takes, King takes, King G2, H3, King G1, F3, and wins analyzed by Hans Kamach. I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name. HANS space KMOCH. That's the guy's name. They're saying that Spillman and Mesola says that the best try for black is actually for white is actually A4, and then B6, B5. Now the winning plan used in the game won't work as black doesn't have the tempo gaining A6 in reserve. This is exactly examined in the notes to like move 12 all the way to 12 moves out. However, we can still win by another method of F5, King H1, G5, King G1, H5. So it's just like the storm of pawns is just coming down the board. H4, King G1, can't really do anything. A4, F takes, F takes, King H1, King G4, King G2, H3, King G1, King F3, King F2, and then we have G4, which allows the win. Because if it goes this way, we come in here. If it comes this way, we come in, and then we come around and gobble these pawns up. So either way, if he goes here, we gobble this. So if he goes there, we gobble that, and then we gobble that. I should probably put it in dark. There we go. So that's why I played H1, then we played B5 to keep the tempo of A6 in our back pocket. It's always useful to fix the enemy pawns, especially if you are able to retain a tempo like A6. King G1, F5, King H1, and then it just does the same plan, but now we don't have to move our king to get a tempo and give up material. White is completely helpless and must sit tight and hope black can't find a way to break through, which I'm sorry to say he can, and he will break through with this humongous storm of pawns. And then G4. The final, as I like to say, the final slash has just happened with G4. Has come down. Not surprising, there isn't any defense. If then to H4, A4 does nothing. So there's nothing really that they can do. If they try A4, we just take, and the pawn goes whoop all the way down the board and checkmates white. And white would basically have to run, and then that pawn falls. So E4. This makes things easy. Far trickier would actually have been to have played F takes G, H takes G, King G1, f4, e takes, and then e takes f4, king h1, and it's a little tricky on how to actually handle this. He wrote that you have to be careful here. G3 is actually a losing mistake here, so we don't want to do that one first. We want to do the one that's the best move. So what would be the best move here? Okay, so he only gives this line here. It's a double question mark move though. It's actually a blunder. Surprisingly, it's a blunder. F takes, 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 king takes G. What king takes G was winning at a glance. Might think might make us agree with him, since that what can stop black's king from marching over to the queen side, eating white's remaining pawns? Spillman and Mesoloff showed this to be an illusion. White draws after king g1, king f3, f1, e3, e1, it goes, and then and then after he plays king c, a4 actually isn't a sclam, because now there's no way for him to make any progress anymore. A takes B. Actually, one sec, delete. A6, A takes, takes, king c1, king takes, and then king b2, and he's got the opposition. This is an equal position. White survives. Holy ravioli. That is surprising. Wow. F5. F3. King g1. H4. King h1. King g5. H3. King takes. King h2. King g4. King g1. King f4. King h2. King e4. King takes. King d3. King g4. King g e2. King g3. And then the analyzing is a3, and they commented that a6 actually is better, because he has to give way. We have a trebuchet now, the tempo a6, and whoever's to move in a trebuchet actually loses. So he could take here, and it's game, set, and match. So this one move I'd probably give it it's It's a sclam move. I like it. A6. I'm not going to give it double, but A6 is good. They have King F1, King H5, exclam. Very nice black wants his king on G5 after white plays E1. That way the flexible monarch retains the choice to either go H4 or he can go G5 if he wants to. King E1, G5, F1, King D2 loses immediately to King H4, and there's no way to get back in time. Because King E3, King H3, King F4, King takes H2, King takes G, King G2, and you win with Sam Williams says it's a win. It's a win. So that's why he goes to F1. F4, King E1, King E4, King D2, and then King H4, King C2, King C4, King D2, King B3, King E3, King takes A, F4, King takes B, King takes G, A5, and with analyzing H4, there, so we're just going to go up the board. A3, oops, I'm going to just go up like that. There, 6, then they just run. We're just going to run the pawns up the board. Queen, and H7, and it's too late. There's no way to win. So it's all over. So F takes E. F takes E. And H4. King G1. G3. H takes G3. H takes G3. Let's go back to after takes here. There's no better is if F takes G, H takes King G1, A3, King takes A4, H, G, and analyzed still to win by even if he takes there, it doesn't matter. The king will take. King takes after that. So H takes G, and the move stopped here. So the game actually stopped here. I'll put only move, and then we'll call it on this after we finish it. The finish could be F4. E takes F. E5. E6. King G. E7. There. Queens. And then checkmate. And so we'll call it on that. So do you have any questions before I log? Because we're going to pick up our next chapter is queen and pawn endgames. Pass pawns rule. So I'll give you a minute to think if you have any you have any questions. I'll give you 1 minute to think about it. Get a drink of water. Oh, actually, I'll give you 30 seconds because I don't want to, if I don't get a response within 30 seconds, I don't want to have you waiting on here for our conclusion. I'll give you another 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so no comments. Okay, we'll end it on that. I wanted to thank you for all logging on. This was a interesting thing. We ended a little quicker. We got a lot of information done in a small amount of time. Sometimes we get blessed and we can actually do that. Wanted to thank you for all logging on though and participating. And remember, you know what? Every long journey begins with one small step. So the first small step is big. So never forget that. So it may seem like, oh, I only did like maybe 10 to 15 tactics. That's a start. That's a step. So don't ever think that doing a little isn't a lot. You'll build up. And remember that Bruce Lee said he didn't fear the person who practiced 10,000 individual kicks. He feared the person who practiced one kick 10,000 times. He also said that that we have to take what we know, our knowledge. We have to take what we know and apply it and be willing and do something with it. We also have to remember that our mind's wonderfully made by the Lord Jesus, and that we shouldn't settle for a second fiddle or second rank. We should always strive for number one. That's why what Bruce Lee said is there are plateaus. So we've got to strive to get past that plateau. And we got to put on our Grandmaster glasses when we sit down, our glasses, so that when we look at the board, we see it the Grandmaster way. And it is, if you are going for like your rating, trust me, go for it. Go get the norm. It's always worth it. Okay, remember, don't quit. Whatever you do, if you fall down, knuckle down and get right back up and start studying. It's not about if you're gonna fall, it's just when, and it's how you handle it when you fall. That's what we talked about. You become what you think about. If you think positive thoughts on the Lord Jesus, anything's possible, and the Holy Spirit always. Let's see here. Oh yeah. Remember to treasure your victories, learn from your losses, and remember that mistakes do not define you. It's how you handle the mistake that defines you as a chess player and a person. But the main thing is this. When you're studying and most are playing and doing other stuff when they should be studying, do you know what? You're a chess cruncher. And you, my friends, are honoring the Lord by doing that. And a chess cruncher, as you always have heard from the chess cruncher community, we hang up our coat, we hang up our hat, we sit down and study when most won't. A chess cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. Trust me, my friends, it does. And as Wesley so says to the Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, evening, and Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow. And we'll keep pushing forward, and you know what? Great job today. Remember what Hannibal Smith said, though. Always predict what your opponent's going to do. Have a plan based around how to handle it, and never forget your plan. But deal with his and yours, and win that game, and be a chess cruncher. Hoorah, be blessed, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. And remember, honor the Lord always with your talents. Remember, there's the 1, the 2, and the 5. I just always remember that. Which one do you want to be? Be blessed, and I'll see you tomorrow.